What's up, guys? I hope you are doing fine, and I hope you started Monday with a good mood. I know it's time to come back to work or to study, university, whatever. Okay, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Spanish Grandmaster Pepe Cuenca. What am I doing here today? Well, I'll be trying to analyze the game of the day of the round number 4 of the US Championships. And of course, we're going to take a look on the game that took place between Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura. A clash of superstars. The game has been really interesting, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did. So let's start with it. So Fabiano Caruana decides to go for e4, and Hikaru replies with the Sicilian. And I like so much when these guys are playing Sicilian openings and not so much the Berlin, yeah? That we are used to seeing in the last tournaments, yeah. So knight f3, d6, of course, still many possibilities, many possible Sicilians. Now, for example, bishop b5 is one of the most favorite lines for Magnus Carlsen. It's a pretty solid line, but Fabiano Caruana decides to open the center, the main line, with d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and here Hikaru decided to go for a6, entering in the Najdorf defense. One of the most interesting variations, actually gives a lot of double-edged positions. You can also play here g6, entering in the dragon. Also e6 is possible, or knight c6. This is a classical variation that actually we saw in the last game in the candidates between Karjakin and Fabiano Caruana. So a6, and now here again many possibilities. h3 is very trendy. After normally black these days is replying with e5 after knight d2 h5. In this position is also possible bishop d5, bishop g5, one of the main lines. But of course f3 that was played in the game is the English attack is very trendy as well, and is one of the main lines. The idea is very simple. You want to develop with bishop e3, queen to d2, then long castle, then start some sort of attack on the queen side, just pushing all your pawns, yeah. So here in this position, just e5 is a really normal move here in this position. But as well e6 that was played in the game is really natural as well. Here Fabiano Caruana decided to go for bishop e3. Almost everybody played bishop e3 in this position. And now, in the top tournaments, in the top players, most of them were playing b5 here in this position, or bishop e7. And in this position, Hikaru Nakamura decided to go for h5. Just a few games I could find in my database. Of course, the idea is rather simple. You want to stop white pushing these pawns here on the king side. But at the same time, it has a drawback, of course, that now will be not so safe to castle short side. You will have to think twice about before doing it, yeah? So after h5, Fabiano Caruana played a4. I saw a game between Leko and Topalov where actually Leko played queen d2. But a4, now that black didn't play b5 straight away, now a4 makes a lot of sense. Now black is not on time to play b5 anymore. But at the same time, as I already said before, so now you will have to think twice with white before castling long side. So maybe it's now time to think about castling short side, yeah? So knight c6 was played, and now bishop c4. This is a really interesting diagonal for this bishop. There are many tricks on the e6 pawn. So there could be some sacrifices later. So bishop c4 is the best square for this bishop. So queen c7, and now looking with x-rays to this c4 bishop. Yeah, that's why queen e2 was played, just to defend this guy here. And now after knight takes d4, this bishop on c4 is well defended, yeah? So Nakamura plays bishop e7, natural move, developing one minor piece. And now short castles. As I told you guys, you have to think twice before castling long side now, because this pawn is on a4. And now that black cannot actually play b4, b5 in any case, so he decides to go for another plan that is actually pretty natural. In these Sicilians, that this c file is open for black. It's really interesting to start to install a knight on c4. That's why one plan could be just playing bishop d7, rook c8, knight e5, and then just installing a knight on c4, where you actually can hit this guy on e3 and also the b2 pawn, yeah? So Hikaru played straight away knight e5, forcing this bishop back to b3, yeah? And now bishop d7. And now this is a really interesting moment of the game. Of course, the first move that comes to your mind is actually h3. You don't want to know. You don't want to go f4 in this position because the g4 square is weak, and then this bishop actually hasn't got a proper square in this diagonal. So probably you're gonna lose the bishop pair. So the first move that comes to your mind normally is h3, trying to play f4 in the next move, just kicking this knight back, yeah. So of course, if you play again, f4 would be a really good move, just forcing this knight back. But precisely, black is on time just to play rook c8, and after f4, knight c4, and black has a really interesting position. You are targeting the b2 pawn. You want to capture this guy on e3. So yeah, that's why in this position, Fabiano Caruana decided to go f4 straight away. Of course, has a drawback that now knight g4 is strong. You're gonna lose probably the bishop pair because you don't want to go bishop d2. There are so many tricks in this diagonal, yeah. And you're gonna lose the bishop pair, but at the same time, this guy on b3 that before was blocked in this line with the knight on c4, now it's gonna be super strong, and there are gonna be so many ideas related with f5 or e5. Yeah, f5, trying to open this diagonal for this bishop, targeting the f7 pawn that could be extremely weak in many lines, yeah. Alright, so after knight eg4, Fabiano Caruana played king h1. Really natural move as well. Of course, now if you don't take on e3, now we will be on time to play bishop g1, and in this square, this bishop feels so comfortable, yeah? So that's why black is almost forced to take on e3 now. Otherwise, bishop g1 is coming, as I said. So knight takes e3, bishop queen takes e3, and now queen c5, another natural move. Just actually, there are some plans now related going e5 and then forcing the exchange of queens that actually could help black because we have the bishop pair, black has the bishop pair. So now Fabiano Caruana played rook ad1, and in the game e5 was not played. So you guys could be asking to yourself, Pepe, what are you saying? Why now e5 is not a good move? Well, let's try to analyze that. So if black tries to go e5 now, exchanging the queens, actually f takes e5 is a good move. At d takes e5, knight f5, of course, the only square where you actually defend the queen. And now there are two possibilities, yeah? So one is queen takes e3, and after knight takes e3, it is clear that white's position is much better because you cannot even castles here in this position. There is rook takes f6 and then rook c7, and d5 square is really great for white, and also the f7 pawn is weak. You have also the f5 square for your knights. You can jump to so many places, yeah. So actually this endgame is pretty good for white. The other option is of course bishop takes f5 here in this position, yeah. So after rook takes queen c5, sorry, queen c5, bishop takes c5, and now rook f5, you are targeting the e4 pawn. You're gonna play knight d7 because the f7 pawn is hanging, yeah. And you could think about going bishop d4 and then try to castle, and then you think you're okay. But now there is boom, knight d5, really strong move, forcing knight takes d5. Otherwise, knight c7 was coming, knight d4 was not possible. And after bishop takes e5, there is a double attack on the f7 pawn. On the b7 pawn, you want to go also, not c4, sorry, c3, and then forcing this bishop back and winning the e5 pawn. So this endgame is pretty good for white as well. That's why Hikaru played g6. So now, of course, e5 is more interesting because there's not the f5 square for the knight. And in a prophylactic way, Fabiano Caruana played queen e2. And now, of course, e5 is not a strong move because actually f7 will be extremely weak. And with the queens on the board is another story, yeah? At this step of the game, Hikaru Nakamura decided to go for a long castle. It's an interesting move. The engine was suggesting here rook c8. But let's analyze long castles. Actually, this allowed one really interesting move that was e5 here in this position. And actually, Fabiano Caruana didn't play e5. He went for f5. It's also interesting, but e5 seems to be a little bit stronger. And let's try to analyze why, right? So after d take, there are two options here. You can go knight e8. You can go d takes e5, yeah? I don't see any other choice. So d takes e5, f takes e5. Of course, now after knight g4, the problem is f7 is weak. So you can take on f7, and you are not even on time to take on e5 because rook takes e7, boom, right? Winning on the spot. After queen takes e7, queen takes e5, and white is much better, yeah? And the other option is knight e8. But of course now, knight e8. Of course now you can go knight e4. Now the knight on f6 is not on e8 is not controlling the e4 square anymore. And queen b6 is interesting, but let's for example see what happens after queen c7. There is another strong move, rook f3. Now you see the ideas. This rook comes to c3 now with a really with a really strong attack. Actually, you wanna win the queen in many lines. Basically, you force king b8 and now knight g5, another strong move targeting the f7 pawn. The idea is after rook f8, actually there is some strong move. Boom, bishop takes c6, and after f takes e6, knight takes e6. Actually winning the rook for 2 pieces and 2 pawns, and this position seems to be much better for white. And you could actually ask what happens if bishop takes g5 and d takes e5. Yeah, you are lying, Pepe, you are a liar. So f takes e5 and d takes e5. That is now a really strong move. That is actually rook c6. An amazing move. Actually, this queen is forced to defend this guy here. So for example, after queen b6, queen e5, just winning the game on the spot because this rook on h8 is hanging. And after bishop c6, there is a really amazing blow here, amazing shot. Rook takes c6, yeah? Rook takes c6, after b takes, knight c6. An amazing move, just winning the rook on d8. White is completely winning. So that's why this line was extremely interesting for white. Instead, Fabiano Caruana decided to go for f5. It's a really natural move as well. You want to give this bishop a target of f7. So actually e5 was played and knight f3. The idea is after g takes f5, you don't want to take straight away on f7. You want to play knight g5, just intending to capture this pawn on f7 and then with a double attack on the rooks on ah and d8, right? Here and this time the position is extremely complicated. The engine says around equal, and now Hikaru played f4. Good move because now knight takes f7 is not that strong because of bishop takes bishop g4. Sorry, with this pin. That's why in a prophylactic way Fabiano Caruana first played rook d3, precisely avoiding all this kind of bishop g4 moves. And now Nakamura decided to sacrifice one exchange. It's a really interesting move, king b8, but maybe it was not the best move. But the position is not that easy. If you try to defend to avoid this double attack with rook f8, for example, you can just take on f7. And now there are two options, right? So one is rook g8, and the other one is rook h7. So let's analyze both. Yeah. So rook g8, actually this allows knight d5, really strong move, threatening to go rook c3, threatening to take on f6, and white is much better. You cannot even take on f7, rook c3 is possible, but also knight takes f6, followed by bishop takes one of the two rooks is much better for white. The other option is rook h7, but this actually allows knight g5. Now that the rook is not g5, you can jump to g5, and after rook g7, knight e6, forcing bishop takes with a check. Now the black attack is actually nothing without this light square bishop. You can always go back to h3 in case you need it. And after king b8, even some moves like b4 are extremely interesting, just sacrificing the pawn. Probably it's not a good idea to take some b4 because of rook b1, and then there's a huge attack going on the queen side. So yeah, that's why it was not that simple, the position for Hikaru here. So he decided to go king b8, an extremely interesting move, sacrificing the exchange. After knight f7, h4 was played. Yeah, you're gonna take one of the rooks, but h3 is coming, just opening some lines. This bishop is extremely strong. So let's see how the game went. Fabiano Caruana took on h8, free food, let's just take it, yeah? He was hungry and he just took it. So after rook h8, now queen f2. Another interesting move. Of course, when you are material up, you want to exchange queens. And this diagonal is actually pretty dangerous for white. So it's a good idea to force this queen back to another less interesting square, because you don't want to exchange queen, of course. And now another mistake from Hikaru Nakamura. This is a bigger mistake. So he went for queen b4, and we are gonna see what happened later. But a more interesting move could have been just playing queen c6 or queen c8, just keeping the tension, just intending to go h3. But of course, I think now h3 is a good move. Could look like this g3 square is extremely weak. You could think knight h5, and then suddenly you're there's a lot of panic here. But after something like king h2, I think black is better. Sorry, white is better, because you can jump here with your knight. That's not a problem. Again, just remove my rook, and then this the key is that this bishop is not coming to the action. Without the pawn on h4, this would be much trickier. Yeah, you can bring a bishop to h4 and then to g3, just sacrificing something on h3. But this guy here is so sad, hasn't got any proper diagonal, right? So I think white is better here. All right, so he decided to go for queen to b4 and then knight d5. Really an amazing move. Not this move, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d4. Here is at this point where actually an amazing move took place in the game. It's just one move that actually gives a huge advantage to Fabiano Caruana, and he just saw it. And I was really impressed about the move, because this is the only move that works, and it's actually just rook a3. This is not a shotgun move. This is a really smooth move, and probably Fabiano Caruana, he felt like a sir after playing this move. He felt like a sir. Some monocle appeared in his eye, and then probably after the game he went to eat caviar. Yeah, because you're gonna see how smooth is this move. Now this bishop actually is tied. It cannot go anywhere. The idea is now this bishop cannot go to d7, of course, because rook b3 is really an amazing move, strong move, just taking the b7 pawn with checkmate soon. You cannot go to b5. You could think, okay, now the rook on b3 is not going to do anything, but now queen b6 is just winning on the spot. It's going to be checkmate in the next move. You cannot take on f1 because of queen takes b4. So actually this bishop on a4, you cannot move it. And then the idea is actually you're going to play c3 in the next move. The idea is to play c3 in the next move, and then you're going to force this queen back to b5. It's the only square where you can actually defend this guy on a4. And then b3 is going to be played, and the bishop is going to be trapped. And actually black cannot do anything about it. That's why rook a3 is so good move. It was the only move that guaranteed an advantage, a huge advantage for Fabiano Caruana. So black cannot do anything actually here. So Hikaru Nakamura decided to go h3 just to remove the water a little bit. But as I told you guys, c3 is just winning. c3 is just winning. You cannot go just, the only square you have is b5. So after queen b5, just b3. And then the bishop is trapped. So here almost Hikaru has to resign. He tried bishop h4, but there's an intermediate move, b takes a4. Of course, after bishop takes f2, a takes b5, and this has just a rook up, yeah? So he decided to go for queen to d3, and after g3 he resigned. Of course, after f takes d3, h takes d3, bishop a3, queen f3, forcing the exchange of queens. Actually, white is a rook up, and Hikaru Nakamura has to resign. So really interesting game. These ideas with f4, just keeping the bishop pair, but at the same time keeping this guy on b3 really strong. Then this amazing move, rook a3. I think it has been a really interesting game. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. And this has been everything for today. I hope you have an amazing Monday with your friends and family, and see you in the next video of the next game of the day. So bye bye and take care, guys.